Hello and welcome to Audionautic. And today we're taking a deep dive down the AI music generated rabbit hole with UDIO.
This platform was released during the week. And so, yeah, we really put it through the test. We generated different types of music: metal, electronica, folk music, traditional music, blues, jazz, you name it. To really see where its strengths lie and where its weaknesses are.
Yeah, so if you're concerned about the future of music as a musician, we're going to take a look at what this thing is capable of doing and talk about kind of where it could go from here. Let's take a look. So yeah, let's talk about UDIO, whatever you want to call it there, Curtis.
Audio, I think we call it Audio. And yeah, we've done a bit of a deep dive. I've been playing around with it, try and work out whether it's a tool or if it's a tool. And the notion of what is it useful for? Why is it good? It's basically, yeah, is it worth all the hype? People are talking about it. People are generating stuff and they've already written 3 or 4 albums just like that. And it's like, okay, let's talk about this. Let's work this out. So firstly, what is it? It's a text prompting AI generation platform. I'll bring it up so you can see, and it's in beta right now, so it's completely free in that regard, and it allows.
I like how you're second guessing your own pronunciation there, beta. It's UDIO all over again.
Dude, I've been teaching English for so long at this point. I have no idea.
So what is your preferred? Just to completely derail this to a different topic, what is your preferred, beta or beta? Oh man, I stumped him. His brain just stopped working.
Let's go with beta.
Okay, without thinking, say one.
Beta.
Whoa. Okay.
Wow.
All right, there we go. That Lars almost choked.
So yeah, it's a music generation software, which it's kind of cool. It's kind of interesting. Trying to find it, but I'll bring it up in a second. But essentially, you type a text into it, and it can tell you and it will generate music for you. And this has always been a bit sketch, to borrow the vocabulary from the youth these days. It's a bit sketch because it's sus. Yes, exactly. It's sus. Because we just don't know how much we can throw AI generated music. So I went on. We won't do them all because we want to try and get away by 1:15 today. But I will put all of the generations and all of the text prompts into the Discord. If you want to come and join us there, I'll put it all there and we can have a big discussion about it. But essentially, I threw a load of prompts into the generator. With the idea being that we could see the strengths and weaknesses of this machine, this tool, and work out whether or not it's going to destroy us and take all our jobs, or whether or not we can utilize it in its own way. So
let me just add a quick thing about when we're playing those songs, they're going over internet and through our streaming through StreamYard. So if you want to hear what they actually legitly sound like without any artifacting through the internet and compression and things like that, head to the Discord because Curtis will put them there. But yeah, I think StreamYard makes everything monophonic and there's a lot of artifacting and compression. So yeah, Smiling Earth says it does dubstep very well. Frightening, actually.
Yes. It's an interesting one. And if you want to share the screen,
yes.
Just this is just to get an idea of what it can do. And he literally I have to sign in here, but you can literally just type in a prompt, give it some parameters for like the vibe that you want it to give, and I'll share those before I play you the tunes. And then within a few minutes, it just creates it for you. It's wonderful in that regard.
Wonderful or dystopic?
It's free dopamine. It's free dopamine.
Okay, it really is just like Stable Diffusion or ChatGPT, but for music. I mean, we knew this was coming. I think there were other ones even before it. And I mentioned that one that does sample packs. I forget the name of it, but Output or something that you create.
Yes, Output.
Yeah, it makes sample packs. So I mean, this has been coming. Ace of Stripe says, put up your Duke's AI. Yeah. Well, you've got some prompts or some songs from prompts. Is there anything you want to say before we start taking a listen to what it does?
I just want to see on the offset before we get into it what Lars is thinking at this stage.
So, okay, kind of cool, honestly, kind of cool, but still, to me, it's just cool in the same way that AI artwork is cool. You know, you can get some really interesting stuff out of it. Like I like to play with it and see what I can find. But here's what I am not looking forward to. I am not looking forward to the legions of people who are going to be online on social media talking about how they're an AI musician now.
You are right.
You're on
Yeah.
Threads too much, man.
Yeah, I got to delete that.
That's where your first thought is, oh, I'm gonna have to see this on Threads now. I saw some already, like Curtis mentioned, that some people were saying, oh, I've released like a couple albums, you know, I do this with the thing. I mean, yeah, there's always gonna
Mm,
be that. I'm not defending it, but it makes me think of like pop music or any or like movies. When a big tentpole movie comes out or like a big movie comes out that does really well, all the
mhm.
studios think like, oh yeah, let's make that type of, like, let's capture that magic and make a bunch of money, and then they all flop or something. But like it just reminds me of that, where it's like there's that
Yeah.
side of it, you know, the generic, the corporate, whatever have you. But then there's that flip side of it where you can do some really interesting things with it. Like, I mean, I'll talk more about it after, and I know Curtis has it too. But like in my opinion, like I don't have time right now to make a lot of music. Right, I have all these
Yeah.
instruments that I just can't play, but I have a phone that has Koala. I have the SP in the house. If I can just get started with something, just like rather than sampling vinyl and dealing with those copyright issues, we'll talk about
Mhm,
ethical and copyright issues with AI in a second. But I can be
mhm.
like, hey, AI, I want, you know, this type of sound. And then that's my start point, and I can just make something. I'm not saying I'm going to release, but you
Yeah.
can make some interesting things. I mean, there's stuff you can do with sampling or self sampling, you know, that you can get outside of your comfort zone and then build on top of it with live instruments and things like that. So,
Yeah. I know what
yeah.
you said earlier about, like, you know, a movie comes out and then other studios are like, "Ooh, let's make that movie." It reminded me of a magic time in the late 90s when there were 3 movies about an asteroid hitting Earth in theaters at
Oh,
the
yeah.
same time.
Well, remember Pokemon too? Then there was like Digimon and this and that.
Oh my
You know,
gosh. Pokemon, Digimon, there were like
now we've
2
got
others.
Pow
Yeah.
World, and there's a bunch of clones of Pow
Power
World
World.
coming out. Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
somebody
So
made
yeah.
something cool. Let me clone that and
Yeah.
capitalize on it.
But I'm
Mhm.
just saying, so that will always exist in any form and
Mm,
art form. But there's always
yeah.
that flip side. Like it's two sides of a coin, is all I'm trying to say, is that there are interesting ways to use this, and then there are the ways to, I mean, exploit, however you want to say it. Curtis,
No, that's the right word.
let's show this and then let's give our opinion, because I think it's
Mhm.
important to hear. As Ross says, uh, it's it's better than that. It's almost at a point where it can stand on its own 2 feet. I think
Mhm.
they're talking about the AI, the way it produces or whatever. So yeah, let's hear what this sounds like,
Mm.
and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, so this is the first prompt that I want to show you. The prompt is quite simply smooth jazz, easy listening in the style of Blue Monk 1950s recording. And this is just text to audio. No, nothing else has been done. So let me just play this for you.
Take my heart, it beats for you. Take my eyes, I see with them. Only if you're in my view.
The
Ah,
pitch on the voice, you can just like hear a couple clear
Yeah.
delineations where there's no shift, there's no like natural movement of the. I mean, that's really impressive in
Mm,
the voice, especially. But I really like how it's like ooh, ooh, like there's just a skip.
mhm.
There's
yeah.
no shift, like no glide or whatever between notes and things like that. That's crazy.
Just
I mean,
auto tune, right?
yeah, it's like you're listening to a 50s song that they put through auto tune, or they stem split, and then because I can hear that AI
Mhm.
artifacting that's in there. Like any voice through AI always has this sort of like artifacting, but also kind of sounds like not dead, but like missing something. You know, that I
Yeah.
guess it's that uncanny valley. Um,
It
yeah,
it I think Asaph said it best. It's like it sounds acceptable. Like it sounds like
yeah,
what you told it to make, but it's
Mhm.
also like you said, it's like there's those very clear things there. It's just like, wait a second, that's not real.
yeah.
And
It's
it's
that
kind of the
uncanny
same thing
valley.
that we're still, yeah, kind of the same thing we're still having with AI art, where it's just like,
Yeah,
ooh, it looks really cool, but you see those
yeah,
little red flags. It's just like,
yep.
hmm,
Yeah, Ross says auto-tuning what though? It's not auto-tuning. It's the fact that it's a synthesized voice that's missing the thing. So it sounds to us like auto-tune because that's synthesizing the voice, but it's just missing that natural movement between where there was one word there, like 2 words when it switched. I really heard it. That's why I started kind of giggling because I heard it just go from like this note right to there, like nothing, no movement, no natural movement. Yeah, Smiling Air says dead behind the pixels.
Behind the pixels.
Mhm.
All right, what's the next sound we've got?
Like that.
Let's see. What do we
yeah.
got?
So I went a little bit more. I tried to do something a little bit different with this one. This is the prompt for this one: metalcore in the style of Ginger, Ukrainian metalcore band. Female vocals, lyrics about the collective consciousness and loving everything. I thought it was a great way of doing it, and it came up with this one. This one's entitled "Entwined Awakening." I'll leave that one there for now. Yeah, so that's metalcore for you in AI.
Oh, that's hilarious. I like how it still had that bass drop, that loud, like that stereotypical bass drop that you hear in a lot of that metalcore right there. That was awesome.
Oh man.
Ross says, but it is using autotune. Is it? I'm not sure how it's generating, but I mean, if it's synthesizing the voice, I wouldn't call that autotune. I would say it's just a synthesized voice. If it's taking sounds from things and then auto-tuning it, I don't know how it's doing it. Ross, maybe you know, and that I'm not sure. But if it is just all synthetic, if it's all just creating it, then I wouldn't call that auto-tune. I would just say that it's there. But I really want to try something. Yeah, Smiling Air says I might use this for the genre challenge. Yeah, that would be interesting as long as you do something with it. Yeah, because Lars says no cheating. But I'm just thinking, yeah, that could be an interesting start point to sample. Like I was saying, like take something and sample it if you're like running out of ideas or hitting a writer's block or something. I'd be curious. I haven't checked this out, but I really want to try giving it like multi-genre prompt, like new metal in the style of Boards of Canada or something crazy like that. Like to see what kind of chaos. Because I remember that digital vinyl, AI vinyl thing we looked at a couple episodes ago. And then we it did one where it was like shoegaze metalcore and it was just chaos, like it didn't turn out the way it was. That's I want to see, like, can it do those complicated things?
It's I think this is the very beginning and this is in beta right now. And the next prompt will show you kind of where its strengths lie and where its weaknesses are. But there is definitely a setting the grounding of what is possible now in that regard, whether it be for underscore for content creation or for like then you take the song and split it and sample it, that kind of thing. It is a lot that you can play with, especially the final prompt, which I'll show you in a bit, trying to combine we're keeping that one for the Discord, but the combination of moving genres together and seeing what it can do, it's quite exciting in that regard. It's quite exciting.
Really quickly, I just want to share, Ross was saying no, Autotune for Humans is not what it's doing. It is using the program that Autotune uses to make the vocals. Interesting. Yeah, because I was wondering how it's generating the vocals, because I was thinking, like, I remember in The Mandalorian, the TV show, I don't want to spoil it, but there's a character who they use like deep fakes and things like that. And they used a program called, I think, Respeecher for one season, where like you talk into it and then it has all the data. I don't know all the details, but I think it has data kind of like deep fakes of that person's voice. And then it like puts that voice, superimposes it or something. So I didn't know if it was doing something to that effect, but yeah, I would have to get the voice from somewhere. It's crazy. I would like to know more about that. Again, this was Curtis's domain for this, so thanks, Ross, for clarifying that. It's very interesting. I want to learn more about the actual creation of it, like how it's generating these sounds.
That last one was really weird because it's like that one. I feel like they did the vocals were better on that one. Like it didn't have
maybe
so much
because I think because it's a scream.
Yeah, those guitars sounded like ass. Like,
well, we are getting it compressed though through I want to hear it on the Discord, but yeah, it sounded like the like a 128 version of the Doom Eternal soundtrack, like all that just like
Nice.
compression, because it was already messed up the way they exported those sounds, most of them, because of all the drama with that game and stuff. So that's what it sounded like to be, just brick walled and then like smushed and just all this like artifacting and stuff. I was like, oh, but the vocals through this did sound interesting, and I think it's from the fact that it's like a vocal fry or something. But I really want to know how it's generating that stuff. It's really
I
interesting.
don't think they got the prompt about female vocals though, because that did not sound.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's hear the next one, Curtis.
All right.
Okay, so this one, the prompt for this one is traditional Irish folk music, melancholic yet with a glint of optimism. And I brought this one to the table because it shows the limitation in the organic textures like guitars and strings, etc., but also the sampleability of it. So I wanted to bring this. So this one's called Emerald Twilight. They do name them all for you as well, which is quite nice.
How convenient. You don't even need to think of a name now.
Exactly. Why even
Wow.
have any creative output when you can just generate something? Anyway, this is the traditional folk example.
I feel like that
Not so
lead
impressive.
was not where I wanted, like, was expecting it to. Like, it didn't sound right there.
Lars is just shaking his head with absolute disregard. Lars, what are you thinking?
This feels really weird, especially since, like, you know, people send their music to me and I listen to it like as intently as I can, and now I'm sitting here listening intently to this music that I know is not made by anybody. It's just like random mathematical inputs trying to make something cohesive, and it sounds so weird. It just sounds so weird. I think like a lot of the like the electronic textures, they seem to work just fine. But like you said, like the acoustic, like the natural, like acoustic textures, they just sound so off. It's hard to put. It's hard to accurately
Unsettling.
describe. Yes,
Unsettling.
yes.
It's unsettling. Like, it's the same with when I watch AI videos that are trying to look realistic. It's just that uncanny valley. Like, it's the same with photos too. Like you were saying, Lars, when you start looking into the photo, I feel like the AI photos for me, maybe it's because I've been like using it a lot, but it like you notice the artifacting, but when you're trying to generate like landscapes and stuff, it doesn't necessarily seem like unsettling per se. But the videos and stuff and things that are trying to be realistic, that's where it's like, oh, that's why maybe like I'm just theorizing, but maybe that's why the more organic sounds seem more unsettling in here, because we're expecting it to sound human, because organic instruments have to be played by a human, so there's imperfections, there's off times, there's this and that. And I mean, it almost sounds like it's mirroring those imperfections, but either it's doing it on accident because of its algorithm, or it's just trying to, and it's hitting that uncanny valley. And it's so weird, weirdly fascinating.
It's almost like it's trying to hold a butterfly too tight and therefore crushing it in that regard. You know, it's trying to emulate.
I did want to mention, because Asaph was bringing up something I wanted to mention, because when I was hearing those guitars, I was like, oh yeah, I hear the artifacting in the guitar, but I wonder, someone that's not like always just playing guitars and stuff, would someone notice these things? And where is it? Sorry, Lars, I posted your Asaph says, but is it passable to non-music? But it's passable to non-musicians, right? That's the interesting thing. That we've got Dialect Kane says, right, to non-musicians, it's just lo-fi. Yeah, that's the thing.
I feel like it was full. Oh, go ahead.
No, Lars, go ahead, bro.
Oh, I was just going to say, I feel like it would fool the same boomers who are on Facebook liking all those weird AI pictures. It would fool them for sure.
I always see that on the ChatGPT subreddit, like, oh, this one has 1.5 million likes or something, and it's like clearly fake.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to see if there's
amen in the comments.
Yeah, hold on. We got a couple other chats I want to share. Ross says it definitely goes generic. You know, 1 year ago, an AI app that could name songs would sell in the App Store. Genuinely name songs, not random generate. Yeah, I mean, I think, Ross, I think it was you in a previous episode that was talking about how like this might be the last year of paid STEM separation or something like that. Maybe it was someone else. But I mean, it's interesting just the way these things just develop and scale so quickly. It's really interesting just how quickly everything changes and advances. It advances so quickly.
Mhm.
And I think that's something to carry forward in that regard, because this is just in beta, and it is going to grow and get more and get bigger and more in depth. That note from Ross as well about the kind of the generic nature really comes up in this next prompt.
Yeah, let me share that. I was waiting to share it, but if you want to reference it, let's bring it up because there's the listeners on Apple and Spotify don't see it. So Ross says, "You are being very generous to the 1,000 generic hit singles that swamp a scene a year after new music breaks through." That's what I mean exactly when I was talking
Oh.
about movies and all this. Like that's what always happens. Like if something is in the zeitgeist or popular, it people will try to copy it.
Say
Exactly,
it louder for
and
the people, Ross.
Exactly. And I think it goes one step further as well as sampling. What this pushes out is something like Envato Elements and ArtStation, things where you're looking for underscore for your YouTube videos. If you're an influencer or if you are, you're making videos on something in general, where you just need that generic sound where it's not about the music, it's just about the vibe, so to speak.
Yeah,
And
background.
exactly. So let's take a look at this one. This is called Neon Deadline. And it's a synthwave track in the style of Gunship, heavy beats with lyrics about being late for an appointment at the dentist. And I had some fun. I was having fun. So this is this one. This is what I'm talking about in the whole generic kind of underscore vibe. Just listen to this one for me.
In the rush, time slips like sand in clenched fists now. Gear shift, I push to the floor. Now I race. Neon streets feel like a heartbeat fighting time, but I need more.
I need more. That voice was interesting.
That did not
Very much.
sound like synthwave. That sounded like KMFDM from like 2015 onward.
It
Like,
sounded
I
like
just-
something you'd hear in Cyberpunk 2077, like in one of those
Yes.
clubs. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
It creates it's not high quality, it's not Gunship itself, but it creates a vibe in that sense, which just has an inkling to something. It's not a direct thing and it's not going to be there, but it is something in so generic that you can't really put it into its own space, which is what I feel like it's going for as well in that regard.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, that gets into the whole idea talking about like when you just need it for background, like there goes the whole idea for making music for TV and movies and things like that. I mean, I think there's as of now, it's this will. I mean, what we're listening to now will be dated in the next week, right? If it keeps advancing and changing, like the algorithm and all that stuff. But there's definitely there's some quality differences between what a human can make versus what that's doing. But I mean, if someone doesn't have money or a budget for music for their film or something, it's there, and then that goes theoretically a job, right, or something. I mean, I don't know. Just thinking like more of the darker path that this can go or something.
Well, I think I spent the last the job I had before the job I had now. I was making music for underscore using AI, and we made a lot of tracks. And the amount of but the quality of the tracks were quite clunky and were very obviously MIDI and generated. And some of the stuff coming out of here, we haven't played all prompts today because we haven't got time, and I'll put them in the Discord. But what you can get from them and what you do see from them at the very base level, at some of them are better than the songs that my AI was generating 2 years ago, for example. And I was making music specifically for TV and film and for underscore. And this is totally where this is headed for in that regard. And this is just the beginning of that, which is quite scary. And in the name of removing jobs and removing what it can be used for, and upsetting the whole kind of sound library creators, so to speak, that does breed questions as to usability in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are questions for a future discussion, but I mean, it is interesting. And on the other hand, I mean, someone was mentioning, I think it might have been Smiling Air, saying like musicians of the future will include artists that can write the prompts better than everyone. I mean, you see jobs coming up for prompt engineers with ChatGPT to like post to social media for companies or something. So it's like that's some, I mean, if a musician is trying to make money from their job, maybe that's a hat they can wear or something. I mean, I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying like these things always change. Like the future is always changing. So yeah, let's listen to these last two because we're running short on time, and then let's just give a final thought, and we'll continue the talk in the Discord, obviously.
I wanted to finish this last one on a little brighter note at the very much the limitations. So this is it's Hugaku music of an intense nature. So I was trying to emulate traditional Japanese folk music, which is quite niche and not many people know about. And as you can see, I'll play this, and then you can tell me what you think.
That low note just sounds so wonky to me. The like
So
bass note.
yeah, I don't know. To me, that did not sound like any kind of like traditional Eastern music at all. That sounded very Westernized.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I think we found what the bias is.
Yeah, very much.
Or at least where the algorithm is now. Yeah.
Yeah, I did another couple of prompts using ideas from Vietnam and from Thailand, and it had the same thing. It basically had the 12-tone equal temperament, and so it's very much biased towards Western music in that regard. And maybe it just doesn't have as much source material. Maybe they just haven't fed it that much stuff. But therein lies your limitation in that regard. It's very much geared towards Western music, and it's very much geared towards, again, generic, mainstream, popular music, and which gives us a bit of optimism and hope for those kind of more niche things.
Yeah.
Even things like post rock, it didn't really have much to say about things like post rock and IDM and stuff like that. It wasn't as good, in inverted commas, at kind of replicating that. So we're safe in that regard, if you think about it.
If you make weird music, you're good for now.
Yay!
Interesting comment from Ross. I suspect we'll be less angry about it all when the AI also starts to supply other things like stems, MIDI, mixing, etc. I get that to a degree, but I just think if you're trying to make a living from music, this is theoretically removing or could remove one very potentially lucrative avenue, like where you can make money from music in terms of like composing for scores, you know, for movies, for film, for television, things like that. I mean, things change. That's just the nature of life. So it is what it is. But I think that's something to be somewhat reasonably upset about. But I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, if we keep getting advances in stem separation and things like that, it's pretty crazy. He says they say no, if they supply those things as well, we could all edit it. I mean, I saw somebody did create sounds on it and then split the sounds in a stem separator and then mixed it and released it or something. But I don't think that changes the fact that there's a right to be angry in a way about this. Like ASF Stripe says, it's shrinking the pie for musicians. That's all I'm saying. I mean, yeah.
I just want to point out real quick that AI mastering has been around for like more than 5 years at this point, and people still hate it. Like,
that's a good point.
There's a lot. Yeah, I mean, it does like a very, because it seems to me like the limitation of AI is like the most it's ever going to be able to do is a passable job. It's going to get a little more passable each time, but at the end of the day, it's only going to be passable. Like there's still
a whole lot of.
Yeah, there's still a whole lot of opportunity, especially for mastering engineers. Lander has had their AI mastering for almost like somewhere between 5 and 10 years now.
It's been a little while, yeah.
Yeah, and there's still people who would rather, get a mastering engineer because you have an actual human listening to your music and making creative decisions, as opposed to a computer saying it's just like, well, this is what the average is, so let's do that.
Yeah, that's a
And
good point.
I think that's totally fair. But once again, it comes back down to the notion of the art versus the product. And
Mhm.
you know, YouTubers, influencers, they're not so much. They're not worried about any form of like original piece of music. They're not so whether they're not fussed about whether it's beautifully mastered using analog gear or analog emulator gear. They just want
Right.
something to stick at minus 25 dB on their video. That's all they want. And this is
Yeah.
going to play in the background. And
Yeah. It's
that is
capitalism, baby.
it's capitalism, baby. It is, yeah, exactly. And that's all it's about at the end of the day. It's about that product, and it is the very beginnings. I feel this shows for the first time the very beginnings of those sound libraries and the content music being taken away from hands being taken. And we haven't got time to have that conversation about whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing at all today, but that is where we're at, I feel, in this regard for that.
Yeah, just to give one bit of optimism or hope is that I can see also as this grows in terms of ease of use on the creator side, I could see also consumers and stuff wanting to hear more natural, organic things as well, like craving that human expression, like a human
Mhm.
writing lyrics that is actually resonating with them because they're singing from their soul. I
Yeah.
could I'm not saying it will become the pop mainstream, but I could see a large group, a large contingency seeking authenticity. Thank you, Asa. I'm still in a sleep deprived state, so I'm glad Asa is there to cover me. But yeah, there's still going to be a group that craves that authenticity because we're going to be bombarded by all of this AI creations and things like that because it's the ease of
Yeah.
use, affordable for the creators and things like that. But the end user may, or some may, crave that authenticity, just like there were cravings for lack of auto tune or this and that. And I'm not saying it's for sure, but I could see that becoming a thing. I mean, there's always independent music that's doing something different from what the pop mainstream's doing. So we'll see it
Right.
too, I would bet.
I
I
agree.
mean, and they get to do whatever's not mainstream until the mainstream decides to just incorporate that in.
Yeah, until that goes into the AI, and then you got to, but then you just move on. Smiling Air said
Oh my
engineers
gosh.
and producers went through this 30 years ago when home computers gutted their industry. Yeah, things are always going to be changing. That's kind of what I was mentioning. Things
Yeah.
are always changing. That's just the way the future. There's always new advancements and things, and jobs change because of that. It's not good, but I mean,
Yeah.
we have to figure out how can we adapt as independent musicians to the changing dynamic.
On
Yeah.
a slightly brighter, to continue a brighter note, in when it comes to sampling, because I think another use for this as well as
Mhm.
content creation is obviously sampling. You could whack that in and get something quite nice to sample with. You can stem split it and all that, what this does throw into the question is the notion of copyright and the notion of perhaps reforming copyright laws in regards to what you can and can't sample.
Mhm.
We've been waiting for
soon
that
enough-
for quite a while, man.
I know I'm waiting for it, and I think this is another step towards that, and I'm very excited by that in that regard. The
Yeah.
notion of, soon enough you won't be able to tell the difference. If you listen to Mississippi Delta Blues, for example, you're not going to be able to notice the difference between Sam Chapman and an AI piece, and that means you can sample anything. Now, I don't know any samplers, and I don't know any beat makers who have got absolutely no problem illegally ripping samples. So I haven't met anyone who has yet. But if you are
Yeah.
worried about that, you don't have. You can now use this and you have to worry
That's
about that.
the
And
interesting bit.
also, yeah, you don't have to worry about copyright. You don't have to worry about being whacked or anything like that. But also, it breeds that question of, okay, if it's so good and you can't tell the difference, how are we going to police this? What do we do? And
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
like,
but we run into a ton of copyright stuff because I mean, sampling can be copyright. If you're not sampling just yourself, like if you're sampling others, you're in copyright murky water, beyond murky waters, like you're in copyright infringement. But also the way this AI is getting its sounds and stuff, is it, are we looking at long-term copyright issues when, depending on how it's taking the sounds and things like that? Like, is that going to become an issue? Because, we see about art that a lot of these AIs are taking the art. And I mean, this is beyond our scope and capability, but it's just interesting that there could be copyright issues coming with AI. But as it stands currently on today, April 17th, 2024, there's no copyright to the AI productions that I know of. Like it's free use or, whatever. So you can, like you're saying, I mean, that's an interesting way to use AI if you're a sample based musician or not, but you're looking to get started with a song and don't have an idea. There you go. You
Yeah.
know, one quick comment before we wrap up. Drew says, here in the UK, that is why free parties are starting to take off again because people are sick of the mainstream. So, yeah.
Wait, what?
I'm not sure, but
yeah, what's a
that's
free
what
party? What are they talking about?
I'm
Like a
not
house
sure.
party?
Yeah, maybe.
Like a house party, just like going around someone's house, just sticking on the YouTube. Maybe, I don't know, but I mean that sounds good to me. Staying
Yeah,
at home with
Ross
a cat.
clarifies different countries treat AI output differently. I'm in the US, so that's what I see. They say USA,
Right.
no copyright. So, yeah. Smiling says raves, I think, in clarification.
Oh, okay. Raves. Yeah.
Yeah, there we
Raves.
go. Yeah.
Music.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's where we're at with AI. We just wanted to show you the sounds. Thanks, Curtis, for going through all of those prompts, and we'll put all of them up in the Discord. But let's wrap up.